Donkey Job Projects.
What's up, y'all? This is Marshall Lee of DonkeyJobProjects.com, and we are 3/4 of the way in. We only have 1/4 left, 25%, aka about a month left of 100 days of making comics. So how you guys doing? Hope you guys and gals had a wonderful April Fool's Day, wonderful Easter Day, wonderful Passovers, whatever it is you did this past weekend. Hope you had a wonderful one. It was kind of interesting because we finally had a little bit of spring this weekend, and it was a little warm, it was nice, and then all of a sudden, today, I wake up to snow, once again, and half of the day was filled with snow, and it was not fun driving, but luckily it warmed up, and it's sunny right now, and stuff's melting pretty quick, so that's cool. But enough of the weather report of New England. I don't know how it was in Old England, Jan, but in New England, that's how it was, at least in my part. So, today's been an interesting day. I got up and had the opportunity to do the 100 Days of Making Comics Hangout, Google Hangout that's always open, and I was hanging out with Adam Lore, which has happened very often and is always a blast to chat with the young, the amazing Mr. Adam Lore. And yeah, I don't know, that was fun. We talked a lot about a lot of things. And one thing is, he's told me that he kind of really digs my hitchhiker story, which is the Life in Space anthology, my story in that anthology. And he's encouraged me to continue with it further, and I already had some stuff kind of written that goes beyond what I had written there already, but you know, that was just kind of more for the context of the story I was writing, and it's just natural for me to make things way bigger than they need to be. So, but I was thinking that maybe I'll continue it or something, but I wasn't really thinking too crazy serious. But he's encouraged me throughout the last few months that you know, he thinks it could be a really cool thing if I continue to do that story. And as I think about it, I think he's right. Like, it would be fun. So Glyph and the hitchhiker story with Seti, the character Seti, those two are like my kind of big projects that are like series that will kind of go on and on for a long time, probably. Maybe have an ending, maybe not. But you know, they're my like Spider-Man, or like, I don't know, Hulk or whatever, like Wolverine, like one of these ongoing, you know, stories. And so it's something that you know, all my other projects are pretty much short stories. I mean, they could all maybe take on a life of their own and become something even more eventually. But for now, a lot of those things are all, you know, kind of short stories and stuff like that. They're meant to be, at least. So, you know, what did I do for my time today? I actually spent about an hour, and it's interesting. It's been very inspirational. I'll tell you, like, I got inspired by one of I always forget his name. I was saying it today too. I've talked about him a lot lately. What's his name? Ethan Van Skiver, whatever his name is. was watching some of his videos. He's doing so many of these like rants on like Star Wars, and I wish he would kind of get more back to the comic stuff, but you know, sometimes if I need like a semi-short video that'll make me laugh a little bit, I'll put on one of the Star Wars ones. And one of them I put on today was titled something like George Lucas lost his faith or something like that. And it was just all about how George Lucas, you know, when he's like, it seems like in his movies, like he started with like kind of spiritual and faith-based themes, you know, the Jedi and also like the first few Indiana Jones had like, you know, the Ark of the Covenant and these like supernatural elements. And then, you know, at some point he kind of went the opposite route. It's almost like he was embarrassed or something by those kind of themes in his stories and went a different route, a more sci-fi route. Yeah, so like, you know, you get to the prequels of Star Wars and they start talking about the midichlorians and stuff like that, and that kind of turns, you know, Star Wars from a fantasy into a sci-fi kind of story, which I think is interesting. I never really thought of that being kind of the turning point and what maybe ruined the stories, but maybe it did. I don't know. I'm not saying it did or didn't. I'm not like, you know, we don't have to sit here and argue this point, but I think it's interesting, and maybe it was a big part of it. I'll try to put a link in the description for that specific video because I think it's interesting. But then he did the same thing with Indiana Jones. Obviously, he wasn't the only one involved in that story, but he did the same thing with Indiana Jones, or I don't know if he was the one who did it, but you know, the fourth Indiana Jones ends in a sci-fi element with like UFO stuff or whatever. So it's like all the other three had something, you know, more kind of spiritual or faith-based going on. And, you know, he kind of, I don't know, it makes it a little bit colder, a little bit less, I don't know, it just depends on how you feel about stuff, I guess. But it's still interesting to me, but what if he goes a sci-fi route? But there was something that kind of messed things up, you know, and Ethan was kind of saying that was part of why, or maybe the biggest reason why it got screwed up. So it is what it is. Just an interesting thought, but that video made me think like, well, this is kind of an open opportunity, like, you know, Star Wars, like whoever puts the you know, kind of heart back into Star Wars, like the Force being more of a religious or spiritual thing where people kind of grow in meditation and you know, it's not you know, some kind of sci-fi thing. You know, it's kind of an opportunity to, okay, well, my story is, you know, very much inspired by Star Wars, and it's just me kind of playing in a space fantasy type of world, but also almost like a goofy, humorous space fantasy type of world. A little bit more on the funnier side, maybe, than Star Wars, or less on the serious side, I should say. Because I'm not like writing a comedy, you know, but it's less on the serious side, I guess. But you know, I was like, how could I put something like the Force, put that into that story, and maybe that would be the element that makes it really cool. And I already kind of have, like, in the backstory, there's only like a very small hint of it in the story I put in the anthology, but I'm pretty sure I mentioned the hint of it, but it's definitely part of the backstory. It just isn't said. It's like that unsaid, part that is in there. So anyways, so I don't know. So I kind of built on that. And then while I was building on that, it's like all this inspiration comes and I have to like jot it down as quick as I can. And I've been kind of working on my own like definition and method of story writing and how it makes sense to me. And I came up with this thing called the Peapod method today. And basically it's like my definition or understanding of story is kind of the interplay between protagonist's passions, their presumptions, against the providence of the story. So that would be like the plot or whatever, but I like the word providence. And so I don't know. That's kind of something I'm building and working on, and yeah, so that's kind of something I'll talk about more in future videos. And then I got this idea for this thing called with 3 C's that has to do with building a cast like of characters, and that is creating characters that are and these are all things that I've derived from other story writing methods, but this is how I'm making sense of it. But these are like characters who like contrasting. It was called contrasting and complementary characters. Those were like the 3 C's or whatever. So I don't know. I'm building it. I'm working on it. It's not like polished for sure. But so I kind of came up with that, and I'm trying to test it with my stories and see if I can kind of create like this system that makes sense to me to build stories. So yeah, there's a lot more to it. Yeah, that's about it. I have other things I want to talk about, but I have to go. So hopefully you got something from this. Let me know what you think of some of these ideas, and check out that video from Ethan Van Sciver that I'll leave in the description. And I will talk to you tomorrow. Get into that last quarter of 100 Days Making Comics. Thanks for watching. Peace out.